All right, so for this deep dive, we're going to a place that I would never want to drive a car, let alone a massive truck,
Yeah, Tibet.
5,000 meters above sea level
Wow, yeah.
at the Yulong copper mine.
Uh-huh.
And we're going to be talking about self-driving mining trucks.
That's right.
So these are trucks taller than a two-story building navigating this super challenging terrain all on their own.
It's pretty amazing. We have some video clips here from Chinese sources that are showcasing Huawei's autonomous driving tech in action at this mine.
So these trucks are absolutely massive. They are over 33 feet long, almost 13 feet high, with tires over 5 feet in diameter.
They're huge, yeah.
I mean, I have trouble parallel parking my compact car, so I can't even imagine trying to handle one of these things.
Right, and that's where Huawei Cloud comes in.
Okay.
It's basically like the truck's brain. Uses a combination of navigation technology and this really cool thing called high-definition mapping.
Okay.
They created a super detailed 3D map of the entire mine.
So is it kind of like Google Maps, but for monster trucks?
Yeah, you could say that, but way more precise.
Uh-huh.
This map is so accurate that the trucks can pinpoint their position down to the centimeter.
Wow.
Which is amazing because even with constantly changing terrain, they always know exactly where they are.
That makes sense. I mean, I guess if they didn't know where they were, they'd be driving off cliffs all the time.
Yeah, exactly. And this also lets them plan the most efficient routes.
So it saves them time and fuel.
Exactly.
So they're not just driving around randomly. These trucks have a mission.
Oh, absolutely, they do.
Yeah.
There are actually 10 of these autonomous trucks working 24/7 at the Yulong copper mine.
Wow.
Yeah, they go to these loading points, get filled up with ore by remote-controlled excavators,
Oh, cool.
and then they haul that ore to specific dumping areas, and they do all of this without any humans on board.
That's incredible.
Yeah, it's pretty mind-blowing.
It does sound a little too good to be true, though.
Sure.
Like, what happens if something unexpected gets in the way, like a rock slide or a stalled vehicle?
Oh, that's where their obstacle avoidance system comes in. It's really robust. They use what they call fusion perception technology.
Fusion perception.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. Basically, it uses data from lots of different sensors, like radar and cameras,
Oh, I see.
to create a complete 360-degree view of the environment.
So it can see everything around it.
Yeah, and if one sensor gets confused or blocked by something, the other sensors can compensate.
That's smart.
They can identify all sorts of obstacles, like you said, rock slides, other vehicles, debris, even changes in the terrain, and then it automatically reroutes itself to avoid a collision.
Wow. That's pretty impressive. I mean, driving in Tibet is challenging enough for humans, so it's amazing that these trucks can do it all on their own.
Yeah, and you have to remember the weather in Tibet is really unpredictable. Wind, sand, dust storms.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
But the engineers at Huawei, they took all that into account and designed the algorithms to work in these crazy conditions.
So the trucks can see even in low visibility.
Exactly. The sensors and algorithms work together to paint a clear picture of the environment, even when it's tough for humans to see.
That's awesome. But I'm curious about the wear and tear on these trucks.
Yeah.
And the road, I mean, we're talking about massive tires and heavy loads. Aren't they going to chew up the terrain?
Well, yeah, that's a valid concern, especially when you consider that these trucks can carry up to 90 tons of ore.
90 tons? That's insane.
Yeah, but Huawei thought of that too. They developed these algorithms that ensure that the tire pressure is evenly distributed across all the tires.
I see.
So it minimizes damage to the roads and it reduces maintenance costs as well.
So it's good for the trucks and good for the environment.
Yeah, exactly. They really tried to think of everything.
It's amazing.
Another really neat feature is the way they adjust their speed on bumpy roads.
Oh, tell me about that.
So when a truck hits a rough patch, it automatically slows down to avoid causing any damage.
That's cool.
And get this, it transmits data about the road conditions back to the cloud.
Oh, wow.
So the mine operators can see which areas need maintenance.
That's like having a built-in road inspector.
Yeah, it's pretty slick, right? So we've got these super trucks. They drive themselves. They're safe. They protect the roads. But how does all this translate into actual efficiency gains for the mine?
That's what I'm wondering, too.
Well, remember how we talked about the trucks being connected to the cloud?
Yeah, they're super brain.
Well, that connection is important for more than just navigation and safety.
Okay.
It lets all the trucks share data in real time with the central control system. So the mine operators can dynamically schedule up to 300 trucks for maximum efficiency.
300 trucks? That's a lot of trucks.
Yeah, it's a whole fleet working together like a well-oiled machine.
That's a real game changer.
You could say that. And it's not just about moving trucks around.
Okay.
The cloud intelligence optimizes every task, figuring out the best dumping locations for maximum payload.
So they're making the most of every trip.
Exactly. and that leads to a significant increase in dumping efficiency. Some mines have reported increases of up to 20%.
Wow, 20%. That's huge. Are there any downsides, though, like hidden costs?
Well, that's a great question, and one we should definitely explore further. But before we get into that, I think it's important to consider.
Okay, so we've talked a lot about the tech, the efficiency, the safety, but what about the people, the ones who used to drive these trucks?
Right. Yeah, that's a really important question.
Are their skills still relevant in this new world of autonomous mining?
Well, it's not a simple answer. Some driving jobs are definitely going to be phased out. There's no doubt about that.
Sure.
But at the same time, there are a whole bunch of new opportunities opening up.
Okay, like what?
Well, think about it. Someone needs to operate those excavators remotely. Someone needs to maintain these super complex autonomous systems, and someone needs to analyze all the data the trucks are collecting.
So it's not just about replacing jobs, it's more like a shift in the types of skills that are needed.
Exactly. And that requires some proactive planning.
Mhm.
We need strong retraining programs to help workers adapt.
Right. So instead of seeing this as a threat, maybe it's more like a chance to learn new skills and even move into higher paying positions.
Yes. Exactly. Imagine former truck drivers becoming experts in remote operation or specialists in maintaining autonomous systems.
Yeah, that makes sense. It's not humans versus robots. It's more like humans and robots working together.
Right, it's a partnership.
Okay, but what about the communities surrounding the mine? Mining can bring economic benefits, but it can also have a big impact on the environment and the social fabric of these places.
Absolutely. And that's why it's so crucial to consider the bigger picture, the
Right.
whole ecosystem.
Okay.
Safer, more efficient mining can actually help reduce the overall environmental footprint.
How so?
Well, fewer trucks on the road means less noise pollution and dust pollution.
Right.
And if the mine becomes more profitable, it could lead to more investment in local infrastructure and community development.
So it could be a win-win situation, a healthier environment and a stronger local economy.
Yeah, potentially.
Yeah.
But we also have to be aware of the potential downsides.
Like what?
Well, if a mine becomes heavily automated, it could lead to fewer jobs overall.
Right. That's a valid concern.
And that's where responsible implementation is so important. Mining companies need to engage with the local communities, be transparent about their plans, and work together to find solutions that benefit everyone.
So it's all about finding that balance, right? Harnessing the power of technology while making sure it serves the community and not the other way around.
Exactly.
Okay, so back to the trucks for a second. You mentioned earlier that they're collecting a lot of data.
Right. Yeah, they are.
What kind of data are we talking about, and how does that fit into the overall picture?
So these trucks are constantly sending information back to the cloud about everything.
Everything.
Pretty much road conditions, their own performance metrics, you name it. It's like having a super detailed log of every single trip.
Wow.
Every bump in the road, every little change in tire pressure.
So it's not just about making the truck smarter, it's about using that data to make the whole mining operation smarter.
Precisely. You can use this data to optimize everything from maintenance schedules to route planning.
I see. So you can predict when a truck might need maintenance before anything actually goes wrong?
Exactly. And that minimizes downtime and maximizes uptime.
It's like preventative healthcare for trucks.
Yeah, you could say that.
Okay, so we've talked about efficiency, safety, data collection, but how does all of this fit into the future of mining? I mean, what can we expect to see in the next 5-10 years?
Well, I think it's pretty safe to say that we're on the cusp of a massive transformation in the mining industry.
In what way?
I think we're going to see more and more mines adopting autonomous technology, and not just for trucks, for all sorts of operations.
So this is just the beginning.
Yeah, just the tip of the iceberg.
Yeah.
And it's not just limited to mining either.
Really?
This technology has the potential to revolutionize any industry that uses heavy-duty vehicles and complex logistics, construction, agriculture, you name it.
Wow. It's exciting to think about the possibilities, but also a little bit daunting. It's a fundamental shift in how we work and how we interact with the world.
It's definitely a big change, no doubt about it. And like with any major technological advancement, we need to approach it carefully and think about the long-term implications.
Right, because at the end of the day, mining isn't sustainable forever. Eventually, the resources will run out.
That's true.
So where does autonomous technology fit into that bigger picture?
That's a great question. I think it's important to remember that technology is just a tool.
Okay.
It can be used to exploit resources more quickly, or it can be used to extract resources more efficiently and sustainably, which could actually extend the life of a mine.
So it's about being more strategic and thinking long term.
Exactly. And that buys us more time to plan for the future, to develop alternative industries and create a more diversified economy.
So it's not just about the mines themselves, it's about creating a more sustainable future for these communities in the long run.
Exactly, for generations to come.
Okay, I'm really starting to see the bigger picture here. It's not just about making mining more efficient. It's about using technology to create a better future for everyone. It's about finding that balance between technological progress and social responsibility.
I think you've hit the nail on the head there. That's exactly what it's all about.
Now, you mentioned earlier that some people might be resistant to these changes.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
How are they addressing those concerns?
Well, mining companies are finding that open communication is really key. They're holding community meetings, giving people a chance to ask questions and address their concerns directly.
So it's about transparency and making sure that people feel heard.
Absolutely. And it's about showing them that this technology is not about replacing people. It's about working together to build a better future for everyone.
That's a great message. It sounds like they're really trying to do this the right way.
They are. And,
Right.
it's not always easy, but it's definitely the right approach.
Okay, so we've got these amazing self-driving trucks. They're making mining safer, more efficient. They're even helping to improve the lives of the people in these communities.
It's pretty incredible when you think about it.
It really is, but what's next? Where do we go from here?
Well, like with any new technology, there's always room for improvement.
Mm-hmm.
The engineers are constantly working to make the autonomous driving algorithms even better, improve the sensors, explore ways to integrate even more data into the decision-making process.
So they're not just sitting back and relaxing, they're pushing the boundaries of what's possible.
Yeah, they're always trying to push things forward. And as the technology continues to evolve, I think we'll see autonomous systems being used in more and more parts of the mining process.
Like what?
Well, everything from exploration and extraction to processing and transportation.
Wow. So it's about creating a truly intelligent and interconnected mining ecosystem. Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground here. We've talked about the technical marvels of these trucks, the economic impact, the social and cultural impact. Is there anything we've missed? Any final thoughts you want to leave our listeners with?
I think the most important thing to remember is that technology has the power to transform industries and change our world in big ways.
Yeah, it definitely does.
But it's up to us to use this power wisely and ethically.
That's a really important point. We need to be aware of the potential consequences, both good and bad, and work together to make sure that technology is serving humanity and not the other way around.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
Okay, so on that note, I think we need to move on to the last part of our deep dive. Okay, so we've talked about how these autonomous trucks are changing the mining industry, but I'm curious about the impact on the people who actually live and work in these communities.
Yeah, that's a really important aspect. It's easy to get caught up in the technology, but at the end of the day, it's the human impact that matters most.
Absolutely. So how are they experiencing this shift towards autonomous mining?
Well, one of the biggest changes has been a noticeable improvement in safety. Mining is inherently dangerous.
Oh, yeah, for sure, especially when you're dealing with these massive trucks.
Exactly. And by taking human drivers out of the equation, they've made the mines a lot safer for everyone.
So it's not just the drivers who benefit, it's the whole community.
Right. The families of the miners,
Mm-hmm.
they don't have to worry as much anymore.
Mm-hmm.
There's a sense of relief, and people can focus on other aspects of their lives.
It's like a weight has been lifted off their shoulders. That's great to hear. But safety isn't the only change you mentioned earlier, that the increased profits from autonomous mining could lead to more investment in the local community.
Right.
Have you seen any real-world examples of that?
Oh, yeah, definitely. In some communities, mining companies are using some of their profits to fund education and training programs, healthcare initiatives, even infrastructure development.
Wow, that's fantastic. So it's not just about extracting resources, it's about giving back to the community and building a better future.
It's about creating a more sustainable and diversified economy that can thrive even after the mine eventually closes.
That makes a lot of sense. But I imagine there are also challenges. Not everyone is going to be excited about these changes.
Of course, change can be tough, especially when it's happening on such a large scale.
So how are they dealing with the concerns of people who might be resistant to this new technology?
Well, communication is key. Mining companies are holding community meetings. They're giving people the chance to ask questions and voice their concerns.
So it's all about transparency and making sure that everyone feels like they're part of the process.
Exactly. It's about building trust and showing people that this technology is not about replacing them. It's about working together to create something better for everyone.
That's a really powerful message. So we've got these amazing self-driving trucks. They're making mining safer, more efficient. They're even contributing to the well-being of the local communities. It's like a real-life science fiction story with a happy ending.
It really is, and it's just the beginning. There's so much more potential for this technology to make a positive impact on the world.
So what's next? Where do we go from here?
Well, the engineers are constantly working to improve the technology, refining the algorithms, making the sensors even more powerful, finding new ways to use data to make better decisions.
So it's not about just maintaining the current system. It's about pushing the boundaries and seeing what else is possible.
Exactly. And as the technology continues to evolve,
Right.
I think we'll see autonomous systems being used in more and more industries, not just mining.
Like what?
Well, think about construction, agriculture, transportation. Any industry that relies on heavy machinery and complex logistics could benefit from this kind of technology.
It's amazing to think about all the possibilities.
It really is. And it's important to remember that we're still in the early stages. We're just scratching the surface of what's possible with autonomous systems.
Okay, so we've explored the technology, the economics, the social impact. Is there anything, we haven't covered any final thoughts for our listeners?
I think the key takeaway here is that technology has the power to transform our world in incredible ways, but it's up to us to use that power responsibly and ethically.
Right, we need to be mindful of the potential consequences, both good and bad, and work together to create a future where technology serves humanity and not the other way around.
I couldn't agree more.
Well said. Okay, so that wraps up our deep dive into the world of autonomous mining trucks in Tibet. It's been an incredible journey exploring this cutting-edge technology and its impact on the world.
It's been a pleasure talking with you about this.
Likewise, and to our listeners, we encourage you to keep learning, keep questioning, and keep exploring the incredible world of technology we live in. Until next time.